Can we just get some clarity from your perspective? How much is the lack, if there is indeed a lack, of hazard reduction burns to blame for what we've seen?
Madeline, this is such a complex discussion, but I think it's a discussion we need to continue to have. And hazard reduction burning is one technique, but there's also a lot of mechanical hazard reduction. Pardon me, there's a lot of mechanical hazard reduction that occurs as well, which is really important. But hazard reduction burning is really challenging. And the single biggest impediment to completing hazard reduction burning is the weather. And with longer fire seasons, earlier starts and later finishes to fire seasons, like we've been experiencing over recent times, you get a shrinking window of opportunity for more favourable hazard reduction burning periods. And in that shrinking window, you get the extremes of it can be too wet and too cold to effectively get hazard reduction burns done, through to it being too hot and too dry and therefore too dangerous. And let's not forget, only a matter of months ago, in New South Wales, we were, and the agencies involved, land management agencies particularly, National Parks and Forestry, we were public enemy number one because a byproduct of hazard reduction burning is smoke. And yes, there's a very significant health issue with smoke, but you can't have prescribed burning, you can't have hazard reduction burning without a byproduct being smoke. And whilst we try and forecast and predict and hope that it doesn't impact populated areas, you can't have it both ways.
Okay.
And the other thing I would say, sorry,
go on, Shane. Keep going.
So the other thing I would say is hazard reduction is absolutely an important factor when it comes to fire management and managing fire in the landscape, but it is not the panacea. And as a matter of fact, this season, under these extremely drought-driven conditions, the depletion of moisture in the landscape, the vegetation is so dry, hazard reduction burns that are only 2 years old, we're seeing these fires on these bad days just skip straight through it. We're only seeing effective amelioration on fire spread through hazard reduction areas that have been done, say, in the last 12 months. So it's hazard reduction has a place and is a valuable tool for day-to-day fires, for normal seasons. But when you've got a really tough season, when you've got awful fire weather conditions, so when you're running fires under severe, extreme or worse conditions, hazard reduction has very little effect at all on fire spread. It's only when the conditions back off a little bit, generally speaking overnight, or when the severe, extreme or catastrophic conditions get right back to, say, very high, that you've actually got some prospect of slowing the fire spread. So it's important, but not the panacea, and something that we should have a very open and frank discussion about.
And I think it's really important to just hear what you're having to say here, Shane, because there is so much emotive discussion, as the head of the CFA in Victoria here was saying yesterday. He was calling this discussion so emotive. So just to clarify a few things, the main reason, if there has been a lack of hazard reduction or for not doing hazard reduction, it's the weather. It's not the Greenies, as some politicians have said, correct?
No, look, it's not. Don't get me wrong. We are not environmental bastards. We actually work through a sensible environmental regime. Our priorities are life, property, and then environment ranks third. So we have streamlined processes, and I can say in any given year, of all the burns that we've got ready to go, 70 or 80% are cleared, environmentally ready to go. We're just waiting for the window of opportunity, and it's fair to say resourcing is a challenge. So don't forget, as settled Australians, as Europeans, we're now living and working and occupying areas that used to freely burn. We can't light a burn and just let it run. Lighting a hazard reduction burn is complicated, it's resource hungry, it's risky, and the minute we see a burn lit, I end up getting inundated with claims for people wanting us to pay for their shade cloth on their greenhouse. The sun tuff on their back pergola's now got embers that have landed on it. So there's so many ramifications that come from prescribed burning, but it's a valuable tool. It's not a panacea. It is an emotive discussion. It's a complex environment, and yes, absolutely, we should have a very healthy, frank, but factual debate about the pros and cons of what hazard reduction does and doesn't do.
And just a final question on this, because correct me if I'm wrong, your annual report, the RFS annual report from last year, says that you actually met the targets for hazard reduction burns. Is that correct?
Yeah, it depends on what the targets are. So yes, we did meet targets, but I can say in the last decade we have focused very heavily. We've had good support from government in New South Wales. We got record funding into increased resources and increased money to make sure we could deliver more meaningfully on hazard reductions, and that's across our agencies. We've got the principal firefighting agencies, RFS, Fire and Rescue, National Parks, Forestry, that they all do prescribed burning and other hazard reduction work. We cannot forget the important role of mechanical work when it comes to hazard reduction. But we've gone from completing, lucky to be 40 or 50% of our annual burn programs to now up to 80 or 90% of our burn programs.
Okay.
We're not always getting there, and it's a tenure blind approach. I don't care whose land it is. If there's a risk in an area and it needs treating with hazard reduction work, we can serve notices on private and public landholders to get that work done. But we all work together to ensure that we get the risk right, the matrix right of a mosaic effect of prescribed burning, ageing fuel classes, all those sorts of things. It is complex, it is necessary, but we need to ensure that we listen to the emotion, but we derive what we need to do around fact and sound methodology.
Thank you for clarifying all of that. I just have one more question for you. Look, we saw you yesterday at the funeral of Andrew O'Dwyer. You were speaking through tears. The firefighter who was killed, it was tragic scenes, particularly of his little daughter Charlotte wearing his helmet. I just want to ask how you're going and also how all of your teams are coping in this.
We're all heartbroken. I don't know how anyone can't be moved or affected by such tragedy that's hit us here in New South Wales this year, and of course to lose lives and including three firefighters with beautiful young families, such strong young resilient women, with two of them having beautiful little children, a little boy and a little girl, and one that's due to have their first baby in May of this year. It's truly heartbreaking. We are mourning with their families because we are genuinely an RFS family, and when grief strikes one of our own, we all feel it, we all hurt, and at the end of the day, whilst I see the men and women of the RFS and all their colleagues doing superhuman things every day this fire season, at the end of the day they're human, and their hearts break when we see such tragedy, and our focus is to be with them, be with their family, and to ensure for those little children, for baby Charlotte, for baby Harvey, and this new one that's on the way in May, we owe it to them to ensure that they know that their dads were selfless, their dads were doing something for nothing more in their community than gratitude and appreciation, making a difference. They absolutely died heroes in the most horrific of circumstances, and we owe it to ensure that they always know that and they never forget it. And all of Australia thanks them. We thank you as well, Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons from RFS headquarters. Thank you, and best of luck for the days ahead. We know there are a couple of tough ones on the way. Thank you. Thanks, Madeline.